Change and evolution. Caterpillar turns into butterfly. It's a change or it's an evolution? It's a change. It's not an evolution. From a student, you turned into a thief. It's a change or evolution? Why? Why not evolution? You are giving the answers, but you are unable to differentiate between change and evolution. At some point, you know the answer. Get down to that answer. Valmiki turned from a thief to a saint. Change or evolution? Change? What is evolution then? Give me an example of evolution. Ape turned into a man. Change or evolution? Evolution. So what is evolution? Change in genetics is evolution? Long term? Policy. Process, long term process. What is long term process? A gradual change which takes over a long period, and that change is from simple to complex. Nature of change. So here, evolution indicates progressive change. Progressive change which is gradual, and here that progress is from simple to complex. This is called evolution. Caterpillar doesn't change into butterfly. It evolves into butterfly. And a student changes his attitude from being an honest person to a thief. That is change. That is the difference between change and evolution. Evolution is a change which is gradual and which is, what is the direction of change in evolution? From simple to complex. From unicellular to multicellular. From homogeneous to heterogeneous. This is evolution. Understood? Right. So tell me, there are several biological and cultural evolutions in human history. So which is responsible for which? Biology is responsible for cultural evolution, or culture is responsible for biological evolution? What is human evolution? The life started with a single cell and today we have billions of cells. So we evolved from a single cellular organism. So this is evolution. So what is responsible for this? I'm asking you, is biology responsible for cultural evolution, or is culture responsible for biological evolution? Biological evolution ante the way we are looking today, the way we are today. Cultural evolution ante the culture we have today, the evolved culture we have today. So which is responsible for which evolution? You have to give me an example. Whatever your biology, whatever you are today is a result of culture, or culture is responsible for whatever you are today? Tell me. Biology is responsible for cultural evolution? How? From apes to Homo sapiens is a biological evolution. So, how did this biological evolution resulted in cultural evolution? We evolved from apes to humans. In this evolution, one major evolution is an increase in size of the brain. Compared to the brain size of the apes, we have a larger brain. Larger brain, more compartments, more cognitive capacity, more ability to think, analyze, decide, choose, etc. Even the language is also part of larger brain. Right? So what happened? Because of the larger brain, first the brain size increased, and then later we started to walk on two legs. Have you seen animals walking perfectly with two legs? perfectly with 2 legs. There is only one animal that walks perfectly with 2 legs. Humans. Right? So here, then we started to walk on 2 legs. While walking on 2 legs, what happened? The anatomy of the ape has to change. See, if ape started walking on 2 legs, the body weight is too much. So you have to reduce your body weight. So eventually the body weight reduced, eventually the pelvis. When we started walking on 2 legs, first when the ape started walking on 2 legs, you have to change your structure, body structure. First your pelvis have to change to accommodate, because when you are standing on 2 legs, the weight falls on your pelvis, lower backbone. So this has to change. So this pelvis size reduced. Look at the size of pelvis. This is the pelvis of the ape. Very large. But if you have to walk on 2 legs, the pelvis have to accommodate the bipedal walking by reducing its size. So when the size of the pelvis reduced, the birth canal through which the baby comes out, the birth canal started to becoming small. It became narrow, right? So what happened? So whenever an animal gives birth to its baby, it gives birth to fully developed baby. The young one will stand up and it will start walking. It will start jumping, running, everything. But when a human infant is born, he doesn't have a fully developed brain. Yes, they can't walk, they can't talk, they can't speak, they can't even see properly. They close their eyes. So because of this narrowing down of the birth canal, premature babies are born to humans. So if humans give birth to fully grown babies, the babies won't fit in this birth canal. They don't come out. This birth canal. As a result, what happened? Premature babies were born to humans. So these infants, they need lot of care. They cannot run, they cannot eat by themselves. So they need more attention and care from the parent, especially from the mother. So now the mother has to take care of the infant. Now this takes for a long period. Now she has to care for the infant. Now this mother cannot go for hunting. She cannot get her own food. Now who will support this mother and child duo? There should be some person. Yes, some person should be associated with these members for a long term to provide them the food. And that's how the institution of family started. What is family? Part of culture. How did this culture evolve? Because of the biological changes. Because of the biological changes, the culture started. Biological evolution resulted in the cultural evolution. Understood? Because of the changing anatomy of the humans, which gave birth to premature babies. So because of the premature babies, the mother has to take care of that infant for a long period. She cannot go for food, hunting. She cannot go for hunting. So at that point of time, she needs someone to assist her. And that's how family started. Culture also resulted in the biological evolution. How? Culture also resulted in the biological evolution. Look at the teeth of chimpanzees. Look at the teeth. They are very large teeth. And look at the jaws of chimpanzees. This is the teeth of chimpanzee. Do we have such teeth today? No. Look at the jaw of chimpanzee or gorilla. Very massive jaws. Why massive jaws? Because you have very large teeth. Why you have large teeth? Because you have to eat raw meat. You have to tear the raw meat. You have to chew the raw meat. So for that, more strength is required. Large canines, large teeth is required. Large jaw muscles are required. That is the reason why they have massive jaws. So when they discovered fire, accidentally the raw meat fell into the fire. It got cooked and accidentally they ate that cooked food. And what is the texture of the cooked food? Does it require more energy to chew and digest the food? No. So eventually they got habituated by eating the cooked food. As you start eating the cooked food, what happens? Now you need less energy to chew the food. You don't require massive jaws to cut the cooked food. So eventually what happened? The teeth size reduced. When the teeth size is less, the jaw size also reduced eventually. So from the massive jaw which is protruding out, slowly what happened? The jaw became smaller in size and it started to recede, aligned with the facial axis. So here, cultural evolution. Culture is responsible for biological evolution. What is that culture? Fire. Eating cooked food. Because of that culture, there is a change in the biology of the person. From a massive jaw to a smaller jaw. Right? So, both biology and culture influence each other in this evolutionary process. Understood? So, now tell me, you understood what is evolution? Why humans evolved? Why humans evolved? Why? And how? How humans evolved and why humans evolved? 2 questions. Why and how? Why humans evolved and how humans evolved? So there are several theories. Before Darwin, Darwin's theory is popular. His explanation is popular. So we classify theories as theories before Darwin, Darwin's theory and after Darwin's theory. So before Darwin, there are thinkers who gave the reason how evolve, how organisms evolve, not just humans, how organisms evolve, and we can use the same analogy for humans also. How organisms evolve? What do you think? Or why? See, there is one thinker who says that organisms evolve because there is an innate urge to evolve. You want to evolve very strongly. When you want to evolve very strongly, what happens? You will try to achieve it. So in that process, you will evolve. He will also give an example of giraffe. Giraffe is with a long neck. So he says that initially giraffe did not have a long neck. It has a very short neck. It wants to eat leaves at the top of the trees. So it tried to reach out to the leaves which are at the top of the trees. Daily, it used to stretch its neck. Because of that use, frequent use, what happened? Neck started to stretch and any change that happened to its body is transmitted to its children, next generation. Really? Really, will it work that way? If I want to fly, can I develop wings? No, that's not the innate urge. And he says that if you use any organ frequently, that organ evolves. If you don't use any organ frequently, that organ disappears. That's why I keep telling students to use brain. Right? So according to him, if you use any organ, so here the giraffe is using its neck frequently. So that neck evolved. If you don't use any other organ, it will disappear. If that is so, we also have an appendix. What is the purpose of it? Clearly, practically, so far no specific function has been mentioned. It is seen as a vestigial organ. That should disappear if it doesn't have a function. But still we have it, right? So that theory was not accepted. He also says that anything happened to your body, you will transmit that to the children. So what if you go to gym and develop muscles? Will your children be born with muscles? What if during an accident you lose a leg? Will your children will be born with one leg? No. So that theory was not accepted, rejected. Why and how was wrong. Next, Darwin came. So Darwin, once he went to an expedition to a Galapagos Islands, beautiful islands in the Pacific. So there he observed there are several group of islands with so much of flora and fauna diversity. Different types of plants, animals, birds are present there. So after his observations, he came out with his theory of organic evolution. So he says that it is not the innate need, it is actually the environmental pressure. It is the pressure from outside that makes the organism to evolve. What is that pressure? So he says that there is one bird. Just assume that there is one type of bird in that island, only one type of bird. There are 100 birds of the same type. That bird has a beak like this. Large beak. With this beak, all the birds can eat nuts. Only one type of a bird, and they eat only one type of a food, that is nuts. There are 100 such birds. That year, because of tsunami, all the trees are washed away. And assume that in the earlier case, 100 nuts were given to the 100 birds. So all the birds were happy to eat. There is lot of food. But now, because of tsunami, all the trees are washed away. There are only 50 nuts. And there are 100 birds. These 100 birds, they will eat only these nuts. And these 50 nuts are available to only 50 birds. What about the rest of the 50 birds? No food? They will die? Right? So this is the stress. Food scarcity is the stress. Without food, there is no food availability. So what happens to the birds? Birds will die. 50 birds will die. So this is the environmental stress. So what happens in the next generation? So these birds lay eggs. In the next generation, there is a small change in the beak of the bird. One bird changed its beak. Born with this type of beak. Another bird was born with this type of beak. Another bird was born with this type of beak. Another bird born, it changed its color. All the birds are blue in color. This bird is white in color. So these are the changes happened in the next generation. Right? So here what happened? This bird, because of its beak, it cannot eat this nut. Instead, it prefers to eat worms. Because of this beak, this bird changed its diet, changed its food. It changed its food to worms. It started eating worms. This bird started eating fishes. This bird started eating fruits. And this bird has no choice. Because of its beak, it has to feed on the nuts. So which bird has the more probability to survive? Which bird has the more probability to survive? Which bird has more probability to survive? All the birds? See, here you have, there is food scarcity with respect to nuts only. You have worms in that island, you have fruits, you have fish. Different types of food sources are available, right? But because these birds, they cannot eat all these resources because of their beak. In the next generation, there are 4 variations seen. One bird got this beak and immediately that bird switched to eating worms. So it starts to survive. There is no competition for this bird. And there is more food security. There is no stress to this bird. This bird will survive. And this bird also changed its diet. Now it need not depend on nuts. This bird will also survive. This bird will also survive. But this bird have to depend on the same food. It did not change its food. And here you have food scarcity. So there is a high chance that this bird will die of hunger, lack of food. So here there is certain change in the body and this change is helping the bird to survive. So this change has an advantage. So this bird will survive and it will reproduce. It will reproduce children with same beaks. Right? So this population increases. This bird population increases. Earlier, it started with only one type of bird. But now you have different types of birds. This bird will survive, this bird will survive, but this bird will not survive. It only changed the color. Color change does not facilitate change in the diet. There is a stress in the environment. So immediately this bird will die. White color bird will die. But the birds which changed their beaks and which changed their diet, they will survive. Because it has an advantage Right? Now, assume that the bird is able to change its beak. The beak became long, but the body weight of the bird is very high that it is unable to fly with that beak. So what happens eventually in the next generation, the body weight reduces. Next change. In the next generation, after 2 generations, the wings become larger. After 3 generations, what happens? The legs become stronger. So several micro evolutions, every 2 to 3 generations, one change is happening. So just imagine how many changes might have happened in 7 million years. 7 million years. It took 7 to 8 million years for the ape to evolve into human. Every now and then a change is happening, and that change sustains only if it has an advantage. See, the bird also changed, but there is no advantage of this change. So the bird vanished. So that is a reason why many of our early human ancestors, although they might have changed, they could not survive in the environment and they perished. They became extinct. So evolution is not just one day process, not single process. It keeps on happening. Several millions of micro evolutionary changes happen for millions of years for the formation of a species. Whatever change happens, that change should be advantageous. Only when it is advantageous, you can survive. Right? So this is how he says that this is how species are formed. But he cannot explain what is causing this change in the beak and why is this change transmitted to the next generations, because he doesn't know about the concept of gene when he came up with this theory. Later, post-Darwin, they studied about gene, chromosome, and how genetic information is transmitted from parents to the children, and then they solidified this theory. They strengthened this theory of origin of species given by Darwin with proof from the biology. Understood why and how humans evolved? This we'll discuss in chapter 1.4. And there are several theories which state that as the evolution progresses, body size will increase. They will also quote examples like dinosaurs, elephants, because dinosaurs and elephants, they have their ancestors who are smaller than them. But we prove that these theories are not right. Understood? How do you know that 2 different creatures have the same ancestor? How do you know that you evolved from ape? Why don't you say that you evolved from a donkey? Why humans? How do you know that humans evolved from ape only? Why not a donkey? Why not a frog? Why not a fish? Based on what criteria? Features. Similar body features. Similar body features between 2 different species. For example, humans and chimpanzees. There are similar features. Indicate that they have a common ancestor. Or 2 different species with 2 different ancestors, yet they have common features. What does that indicate? 2 different species, 2 different ancestors, yet they have common features. For example, take the example of bat. Bat tells kada, cricket bat kada. Gabbidam. Bat and a bird. Bat is a mammal. Bird belongs to aves group, avian group. Bat and bird both belong to different species, different ancestors, yet they have common features. What is that? They have wings. We also belong to mammalian class like bats, but we don't have wings. But bats and birds, they have wings. Ancestors are different. Why? What might be the reason? Does all these look same? These are the embryos. This is the embryo of human, embryo of pig. This is embryo of tortoise and this is the embryo of lizard. Look at these embryos. At the embryo stage, all the organisms look same. Similarities indicate that either they might belong to the same ancestor. At some point of time, all these organisms have a common ancestor, and over different periods of time they diverted to different line of evolutions. Either you have a common ancestor or you have a common environment. To survive the common environment, you will develop or you will evolve with similar structures. Bats also live on trees. We don't live on trees, right? So that is the reason why they developed wings. Understood? Why humans evolved and why different species look similar, although they don't have a common ancestor, or if they look similar, if they have a different environments, yet they look similar. That means at some point of time in the history, they have a common ancestor. Right? Next we talk about primates. Chapter 1.5. What are primates? Primates are also mammals. Humans, monkeys, apes, all comes under the group primates. So all the primates will have some common characteristics like large brain, grasping hands, and the eyes, front eyes. Have you seen the eyes of a horse? They have lateral eyes. They have a 360-degree view, but we have only 180-degree view, right? The eyes came to the front, the power of the nose reduced, and focus increased, stereoscopic vision increased, right? So these are some common characteristics of primates seen in monkeys, apes, and humans. Humans are also primates, right? We'll understand primate behavior, and primates evolved into humans. Why and how? Primates, initially monkeys. Where do monkeys live? On trees. Generally on trees, in the forest. So they used to live on trees, eating fruits, jumping, leaping. So this is their activity. So what happened? With the change in the temperature, there is a decline in the forest cover. And the forest declined, and what is the transitional ecosystem after forest? Grasslands. Grasslands. So grasslands start to rise. So now, in search of food, the monkeys have to come to the ground, onto the land. So they started living on the land. So here, the grasses are very tall. When the monkeys are walking or when they are living on the land, they have to identify their predators. On the trees, they were able to identify the predators easily. So how will you identify the predators on the ground? You are walking with 4 limbs. When you are walking with 4 limbs, the grass is this much and your height is this much. How will you locate the predators? You are walking with 4 limbs. How will you locate? How will you look for the predators? It is very important in the nature. Prey and predator relationship. So here you have to be wary. So what did the monkeys do? By sound? See, already we have some adaptations. See, they are adapted to living on tree. So they don't get suddenly that all the senses become sharp, right? Not suddenly all the senses become sharp so they can sniff or they can hear. అంత స్ట్రాంగ్ గా లేవు వాటికి సెన్సరీ పర్సెప్షన్స్. అప్పుడు ఏం చేయాలి? యూ హ్యావ్ టు సీ, యూ హ్యావ్ టు లుక్. నీ సరౌండింగ్స్ సెక్యూర్ గా ఉన్నాయా లేదా అనేది నువ్వు చూసుకోవాలి. అప్పుడు ఏం చేస్తావు? యూ విల్ స్టాండ్, రైట్? Occasionally you have to stand on 2 legs and you have to look for the predators, and then again you have to continue your walk because your body does not support to walk on 2 legs. So occasional bipedalism. Grass ever cut chestaru? Monkeys ela cut cheste chesto, scissor to. How long will you do? See, ఒకసారి you have to go for food, right? Food కోసం వెతుక్కోవాలి అండ్ ప్రెడేటర్స్ కోసం చూస్తూ ఉండాలి. గ్రాస్ కట్ చేసి ఏం చేస్తావు చెప్పు? జస్ట్ నుంచి చూస్తే అయిపోతుంది కదా. దే ఆర్ మూవింగ్, అదే అంటున్నా. వెన్ దే ఆర్ మూవింగ్, వాళ్ళు మూవ్ అయ్యే ప్రతి చోట గ్రాస్ కట్ చేసుకుంటూ వెళ్తే ఫుడ్ ఎవరు ఇస్తారు నీకు ఎనర్జీకి? నుంచి చూసి అటు ఇటు సెక్యూర్ గా ఉందా లేదా అని చూడడానికి, కూర్చొని గ్రాస్ కట్ చేయడానికి అంత బుర్ర అయినా ఉండాలి కదా వీళ్ళకి. See, don't think like a human, think like an ape. We are talking about monkey.
when they are due to the location, they are not ecosystem. So they move fast.
They will move fast, but energy కావాలి కదా, ఎంతసేపు ఫాస్ట్ గా చేస్తారు? See, simple thing, easy thing. We see several animals in the grasslands where they stand up on 2 feet, meerkats. They stand up on 2 feet and they observe their surroundings. This is the animal behavior. And then again they'll continue their walk and again they'll stand up and they will look at the surroundings to make sure that they are secure. They are away from the predators. Right? So this is what happened. Eventually what happened? The need for walking on 2 legs increased. Right? Because they are living on land permanently here. So over a long period of time, they have developed certain structures which facilitated them to walk on 2 legs. Like their body size have reduced, their pelvic structure has changed. So there are several skeletal changes that happened to ensure erect posture. And finally, 4 million years ago, ape evolved. There is an ape called Australopithecus. Australo means south, Pithecus means ape. So there is an ape which perfected this bipedal walking. Of course, it's not an upright, but it started to walk on 2 legs continuously. The first ape, and from this ape started the evolution. Next came the ape man, right, called Homo habilis. This Homo changed everything. Look at the skeletal changes that happened earlier. The ape started to live on trees, different types of locomotions. And look how the skeleton has changed. You have to draw these diagrams, rough diagrams. Don't worry, it is easy. Several changes happened. Look at the teeth. Look at the dental arcade, U-shape arcade, V-shape arcade. Look at the teeth. Spinal cord. Change in the pelvis. Which pelvis is human pelvis? This one or this one? This one is a human pelvis. Look at the changes in the foot. Foot arch is also developed. Understood? So these are the different skeletal changes that happened from the stage of an ape until we get an upright man. The first ape which started to walk on 2 legs. This is the ape man. This is a different species of the same ape. Okay, apharensis. Ape man. Body size, that we'll discuss in. Body hair to conserve heat. To conserve heat. Several things happen, not just body hair. Even the body size also reduced. Why and how, the details we'll discuss in the respective chapters. So this is the ape which walked on 2 legs, Australopithecus. Don't laugh. Our ancestors, our relatives. Look at the faces. We'll discuss in detail. Very close ancestor, Neanderthal. He's smarter than humans. He had more brain capacity than modern Homo sapiens, yet he became extinct. Because We'll discuss. He had more brain capacity than humans, but he failed to survive. He failed in exam. Exams ఉండుంటే బాగుండేది అప్పట్లో. అసలు ఇవాల్వ్ అయ్యే వాళ్ళమే కాదు, అందరం ఎక్స్టింక్ట్ అయ్యేవాళ్ళం. See, look at the evolutionary species. Apes, ape man, he's the first tool maker, Homo habilis. He used tools for the first time. Then he is the upright man. There is a perfect bipedalism with the Homo erectus. And this man, he moved out of Africa. All this evolution till here is happening in Africa. And this Homo erectus man with his perfect bipedal walk, he started to move out of Africa. One species, one group went to Europe and one group went to Asia. In Asia, we have, especially in India, we have paleoanthropological evidences, especially near Narmada. Paleoanthropological evidences. Paleoanthropology, where we study human evolution by understanding the fossils, early human fossils. So early human fossils are also found in India, especially near Shivaliks and Narmada Valley. Shivaliks, we found an ape, Shivapithecus. And in Narmada, we found this upright man. So this man, one group went to Asia and one group went to Europe. The group which went to Europe got extinct. The reasons I'll discuss. And that extinct species, there are so many articles on this Neanderthals. They say that Neanderthal, we have 1 to 2% of Homo sapiens have 1 to 2% of Neanderthal DNA. Neanderthals mated with Homo sapiens and they became extinct. There are some articles in news coming up every now and then. Reasons class లో చెప్తా. Do we have sound here? This is Australopithecus. Sound ఉంటే బాగుండేది. It will introduce itself. రావట్లేదు. Neanderthal. They are archaic Homo sapiens who lived during Paleolithic period. Modern Homo sapiens started from Neolithic period. Australopithecus, he is the ape who started to walk on two legs with a small brain. This happened 4 million years ago. And Homo habilis, he is a tool maker. He is the first to start to make tools. And Homo erectus, he was the perfect upright man who started to walk perfectly on two legs. And this Homo erectus went to Europe and Asia. In Europe, Neanderthals, they evolved into Neanderthals and they got extinct. And in Asia, they evolved into archaic Homo sapiens, early Homo sapiens, who belonged to the Old Stone Age, Middle Stone Age, and Neolithic, modern Homo sapiens. And hence it continues. Understood? The reasons why they evolved, why they got extinct will be right. So right, next. So here we are also including chapter 1.2 from paper 2, where we discuss paleoanthropological evidences from India. What are the two places where we found the evidence? Narmada Valley and Shivaliks. In Shivaliks we found a ape, and in Narmada, ape man, upright ape man, Homo erectus. Right. Next, we'll study about the prehistoric cultures of the world. Prehistoric cultures. In chapter 1.8 in paper 1, 1.1 in paper 2. What are prehistoric cultures? Prehistoric cultures. What are prehistoric cultures? Before history? Ante? Before history ante? Stone Age. Define prehistoric cultures, not examples.
The fact there is no language.
No language.
Basic science.
In history, do we have language? Do we have language? In history? What is the difference between a prehistory and a history? In history also we have cultures. In prehistory also we have cultures. What is the difference? No written records. Prehistoric cultures have no written records. These are the cultures before you have any written records. Then how will you understand these prehistoric cultures? Tools. Prehistoric cultures, there is no written record. We identify these cultures using artifacts, especially tools which are made of stone tools. Prehistoric cultures are stone ages like Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, Chalcolithic. So here, Paleolithic, Meso, Neo and Chalcolithic. All these cultures are classified on the basis of usage of stone means they use stone. They are classified on the basis of, see, this is the geological time scale where the eras are divided into periods, and this period is important. Quaternary and tertiary periods are important. In the tertiary period, we have different epochs: Paleocene, Eocene, Oligocene, Miocene and Pliocene. So here the first fossil was found in Pliocene. Australopithecus, the ape which walked on two legs, belongs to this Pliocene epoch. Pleistocene and Holocene. The modern man belongs to Holocene epoch. Pleistocene epoch, we have the lithic ages. Right? So look at the type of tools used by the Australopithecus. Type of tools used by Homo erectus. Type of tools used by Neanderthals. Mousterian tool culture. This is a question last year. So different types of tools are used by different hominid ancestors. Like Homo erectus use some type of tools. Homo neanderthals, they use different type of tools. Archaic Homo sapiens, they use different type of tools. So based on the tool culture, we classify the periods as different cultural ages as Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic and Chalcolithic. In Paleolithic also we have three: Lower Paleolithic, Middle Paleolithic and Upper Paleolithic. So Homo erectus, the upright man, belongs to Lower Paleolithic. Neanderthal, the extinct man, the more intelligent man, belongs to Middle Paleolithic. And Upper Paleolithic belongs to Archaic Homo sapiens. Then we have Mesolithic. So here in the Paleolithic we used chopping tools, especially hand axes, cleavers were used in Paleolithic, and in Mesolithic we used micro tools, microliths, right? In Neolithic we used polished tools, right? And in Neolithic age we have modern Homo sapiens. So this is how we classify different cultural periods. Now you got the tool. By determining the age of the tool, you can place it, whether it belongs to the Paleo, Meso or Neo. How do you identify the age of the tool? How do you find out the age of the rock? By using different dating methods. mentioned in chapter 1.8. Both absolute dating method and relative dating methods. There are different absolute dating methods which tells you the exact age of the fossil, which tells you the exact age of the stone. So when you know the age of the stone, you can place the stone in the respective cultural period. We also have relative dating methods. So when you have two artifacts, it tells you which artifact is older than the other. It cannot tell you the exact age of the two, but it can tell you which is older and which is a newer one. And accordingly, you can place these artifacts in the respective cultural periods. Right, understood? So, okay, you found the artifact. Now, how do you know the function of that artifact? How the people of that culture use that artifact? Assume that you found this tool. You found this tool. So you dated it and you understood the age, and this tool belongs to specific period. So how did the people of that period use this tool? For what purpose? How do you know this? ఎలా వాడుంటారు ఈ టూల్ ని? How do you know? Hunting కోసం, to kill an animal, or to remove the dead skin of the animal, or to worship that rock, specific rock it was designed, or for fire. Don't know. How will you identify the purpose of this tool? Who will tell you? Sharp? అర్థం కాలేదు. నాట్ నెసెసరీలీ అన్నిటికీ షార్ప్నెస్ అవసరం లేదు కదా. వాట్ ఇఫ్ ఇన్ డ్యూ కోర్స్ ఆఫ్ టైం అది ఎవల్యూషన్ లో బికాస్ ఆఫ్ ఎరోజన్ వెదరింగ్ వల్ల కొంచెం మారిందొచ్చు కదా. షార్ప్నెస్ అనేది టు కిల్ ది యానిమల్, ఆర్ టు రిమూవ్ ది స్కిన్ ఆఫ్ ది డెడ్ యానిమల్, ఆర్ టు ఫర్ పెయింటింగ్ ది బాడీ. దే యూస్ టు టాటూ దేర్ బాడీ, ఆర్ దే యూస్ టు గో ఫర్ మ్యురల్ పెయింటింగ్స్. దానిపైన వాడుండొచ్చు కదా. స్కిన్ తీసి ఆ స్కిన్ అనేది క్లాత్ గా కూడా వాడేవాళ్ళు కదా. దాని పర్పస్ కోసం చేయొచ్చు కదా, తినడానికి కాదు. ఫర్ యూజింగ్ యాజ్ అ క్లాత్. See, they used to animal leather, hides are used as dressing materials. ఆ ప్రాబబిలిటీ కూడా ఉంది కదా. లేదు ఇలాగే చేశారు, అజంప్షన్స్ ఏ అవుతాయి. దాని పర్పస్ ని ఎస్టాబ్లిష్ చేయడం అనేది అజంప్షన్స్ ఏ అవుతాయి. కరెక్ట్ గా తెలియాలి అంటే చైనిపోని వాళ్ళు లేచి చెప్పాలి వచ్చి. దట్ ఈస్ నాట్ పాసిబుల్. ఎగ్జాక్ట్ గా తెలియాలి అంటే then what is the next best option? ఏం చేయొచ్చు? Present is the key to the past. Present is the key to the past. When you don't know your past, read the present. How? What if you find similar type of rock in other culture, contemporary culture? ఇప్పుడు primitive societies ఉంటున్నాయి. They don't live with all the advanced cultural beliefs, advanced social beliefs, advanced technological beliefs. They have different. See, they carry their culture from the past. And what if the same rock structure is present in the contemporary tribal society? Then what will you do? Then you will try to study what is the purpose of that rock in this society, and then you try to give out a theory. Maybe because the contemporary society is using this rock like that. So you try to give some suggestions or hypothesis. The past cultures might also have used this. By studying the present contemporary societies, tribal societies, we can decode the function of the primitive artifacts. This is called ethnoarchaeology. So this helps in understanding the function, the purpose of the artifact, which helps in reconstructing the culture of the primitive man. You don't know what is a culture, what is a belief of that man. Right? For example, assume that you found some stones and bones in the graves. What is the purpose? Why did you find some stones, some artifacts, some pots, some grains in the grave? Enduku ayi undachu? So whatever you analyze from your own cultural perspective, and that has no guarantee, that has no proof. So you study similar cultures, సో సిమిలర్ కల్చర్స్ చదివినప్పుడు ఏమైందంటే యూ ఫౌండ్ సమ్ అదర్ కల్చర్ ఇన్ ది నార్త్ ఈస్ట్ వేర్ దే ఆర్ ప్రాక్టీసింగ్ సేమ్ బరియల్ ప్రాక్టీసెస్ ఇన్ ది గ్రేవ్ అలాంగ్ విత్ ది డెడ్ బాడీ దే ఆర్ ప్లేసింగ్ సమ్ పాట్స్ and some grains. So you go to that society and you study that society, why that society is doing such a ritual. So in that society, assume that they believe in life after death. So in that contemporary society, they are placing the grains and pottery and some animals so that the person after death he goes into the next world. When he goes into the next world, all this food will help him in that world. So that is a belief in the society. With that belief, they are doing all these things. So can we deduct that even the early man might have thought like this? That he also have a faith in life after death. So that is the reason why the people in that community also buried grains, pots and some animals along with the dead body. Now it makes some sense. I don't say this is the accurate method, but it makes some sense. There are several studies, like study by Louis Binford, where they try to decode the archaeological sites. Why certain archaeological sites have some scattered bones and the habitation sites are different, and the bones and the place where they found the bones are also different. It is at a distance. So they did not understand why, and they found only specific type of animal bones. Not all the animal bones are found there. You have one animal have multiple bones, leg bones, like limbs, forelimbs bones, collar bones. So not all the bones of a specific animal are found at one place. Some bones are found at places of habitation. Some bones are found at a distance. So what might be the reason? So he was very curious. So he went to Alaska, and there he studied the hunting and gathering tribes, contemporary hunting and gathering tribes, Inuits. And then he understood why different types of same animal bones are found at two different sites. And that study I'll tell you in the class. Why two different sites we have two different animal bones. Right? So this is the introduction to archaeological and evolutionary anthropology. Understood? Any questions? So what do you think about archaeological anthropology? One drawback here is you have to remember the terms like Australopithecus, Homo erectus, Homo neanderthalensis, archaic Homo sapiens, where they are found. Terms, terminology. You have to rote learn this. You have to practice these terms. And diagrams. Rough diagrams. Don't draw like a medical expert. You have to draw the diagram of foot. I have shown you all the diagrams, right? Spinal cord, the difference between ape and human, and what differences have come due to erect posture of the man, etc. Only that. Terminology and diagrams, you will face a little bit difficulty, but once you practice, fine, you'll get more marks from this chapter, this theme. 50% of the marks are given from physical anthropology and archaeological anthropology, and no new questions you'll get from archaeological anthropology. Only thing is that you have to remember. So when did the fossil came, and how does the fossil look, and in the evolutionary line, where do we place that fossil, who discovered that fossil, in which place, and where are the other species located, what is the geographical distribution of the fossil. That's it. Only thing is, this is bit challenge to your memory. Rest everything is dynamic, interlinking. Right? Any questions? Right. We'll continue tomorrow. That's the end of evolutionary and archaeological anthropology, which contains both paper 1 and paper 2. And you have to read it, study it together, paper 1 and paper 2. Don't study in an isolated way. That won't be organic, and you will not be able to connect when the questions are asked. Right? Thank you.